नैना मैं उड़ना चाहता हूँ, दौड़ना चाहता हूँ, गिरना चाहता हूँ, बस रुकना नहीं चाहता. When Ranveer Kapoor said that, an entire generation felt it with him. The aspirations and expectations of a young mind interacted with the challenges and limitations of a real world. Well, according to my personal experience, I remember when I was walking into my early 20s with hope of being a theater artist, spent 7 years of my life being trained as a social scientist, and now sitting here in front of a fancy mic on a beautiful Monday morning trying to tell you what it feels like to be in your 20s. Hello and welcome to NIJ podcast. I'm Hiba Abbas, and today we're going to be talking about the challenges and opportunities of the mid 20s, often called the quarter life crisis. So, just to give you a brief idea, the mid 20s crisis or challenges or whatever sounds more empowering to you, the meaning of mid 20s crisis is when you reach a crossroad in your life, mostly when you turn 20s or something, and suddenly you get overwhelmed by the challenges and responsibilities, basically the reality of world. And you are equipped with a very limited understanding of the world. Scientifically, it is a time when our cognitive reflexes are slowly eroding. And finally, by 25 or even later, our risk management and long term abilities finally kick in. So, the very prefrontal cortex, which is designed to decision making, takes a longer time to develop. Basically, our early 20s is a time when the prefrontal cortex is still developing, and imagine the kind of pressure we all have to suffer from. During this period, on one hand, we are still physically and mentally trying to equip ourselves while dealing with day to day life and trying to find ourselves in the process. And on the other hand, we are also expected to plan our life and make our life, make all life altering decisions about career and life in general. So, under these circumstances, when we already are, developing into a mature and responsible person, we are expected to lead our life in a systematic way. And that expectation is also valid. But the thing is, are we ready to take it? Or do we need more time to prepare ourselves and explore life before we turn 30? So, gone are the days when we had limited understanding of what an ideal career would look like. The parents would ask us to be doctors or engineers, or we were sort of expected to actually live a regimented life. But then now the possibilities are multiple, so are the opportunities. On one hand, we can choose to opt for a life that is well planned, like for instance, get by 24 get education done, and by 26, 27 get married, and so on. But on the other hand, we can also have a free flowing approach to life, a kind of life when we are more relaxed in a way, when we are learning and also preparing ourselves for the future, but also taking one moment at a time, trying to explore life and basically understand who we are. Then maybe later on, in life, actually commit to one particular profession or more fundamental things like marriages or having a family. Just to give you a Bollywood example of a famous movie called Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, the character of Bunny and his best friend is a classical example of how people in their 20s feel lost to later find themselves. Bunny, in general, was sure that he wanted to explore the world and never settle, while the character of Nana was more restricted and later explores her life to realize that she can still achieve every goal in her life without putting herself in a box. They both felt close while having completely different approaches in life, where one found the idea of settling down problematic and the other wanted her life to be more planned and systematic. The movie also shows how with age our perspective of relationship changes. If only we could ignore the problematic aspect of the film, which conveniently generalizes women as one who is an object of desire and the other who is meant to be loved. But that's just a movie. The point is, we are a generation of confused and lost people trying to make important relationships and build a career, manage finances, and basically grasp adulthood while also trying to have fun. For instance, if a person has put their life and soul into makeup and they might build a career out of it, or if they are passionate about traveling, they can make a career out of it as a vlogger. But so people have ventured into entrepreneurship and so on. But if a person wants to lead a well planned life, who's stopping them? The good thing is now we have a choice, and exploring option doesn't necessarily mean wasting time. Now, let's talk about finances, shall we? Does life prepare us for anything? Does the school system prepare us to do our taxes? Well, if you ask me, stop blaming your school for everything. Let's face it, managing finances comes with time. When we are in our first jobs, we get our own money. How often do we think about saving? It only takes time to learn things and learn how to do our taxes and not take money from our parents and be more, independent and take financial ownership of our life. This is a time when we are building relationships. Our ideals of a romantic life is there on one hand, and on the other hand, the reality of life where we come across as people who are way more complex than we perceive of them. This is a phase where we learn how to love. What is love? How to make space for letting love in, and if necessary, how to let it go. We learn how to get our life together while our heart is broken. And with all this chaos and disturbance, we learn how to reach office on time. But what are we doing? Are we getting up every day, challenging ourselves and make a life worth living, or are we just scrolling our life away? Get our daily dose of dopamine and procrastinate while the major events of our life just passes by. To be very honest, it's okay if we are kind of doing both. If there are productive days and there are also days when we just want to party and have fun or just want to lie down or do nothing at all. It's okay to process these overwhelming fears and anxieties and keep ourselves sane. But whatever we choose, we should always remember that the 20s, no matter how important it is, by the end of it, teach us how to be adults. Whether or not we have a planned life, it's important to live life. It's important to have fun. And it's also important to understand the fundamental question by the time we reach our 30s. Who are we? Basically, I would conclude by saying that your 20s are supposed to be chaotic and confusing. There are two approaches to deal with it. One is to live a well planned life, which is quite accepted by the society, and another one is to explore your 20s, take life slow, find your passion, and then go ahead with life. And none of these are less accepted ways. But most important thing in your 20s is to believe that it will pass, just like this podcast.